So hello and good morning. Our class is set to start off at about 11. So let me give our colleagues some, I think 10 minutes will be good. No, 10 minutes is a lot. Let me give them about 6 minutes and then we'll start with our class. Is Boniface, Odell technician on board? Boniface? Yes, I wanted to confirm that you're on board. I hope you have greeted the class. Thank you so much, Boniface. I think, as I said, let us give them about 5 minutes now. And when it comes to 10:50, then we can start with our lesson. Today, we intend to have a rather mix of things. We'll have a brief session of the lecture, and then I'll allow you to go off and revisit a number of skills, beginning with listening skills, speaking skills, reading skills, study skills, and even a bit of library skills, so that by 12, I'm sure we'll be ready for our quiz. Someone was asking when is the cut, and as you remember, when we began off this class, we said because of the nature of KUC 1110, from last year we have not been having cuts, we only have quizzes. Now, these are a number of items. They may not be 30, it just be like 5, 10, 15 items. And then we have several of them. At the end of it all, Boniface, our very able technician, will put those marks together, consolidate them, and work them out of 30, so that at the end of it all, you have your 30, your marks out of 30. I wish to advise that ensure that I want to advise that ensure once you are done with with our quiz today, you see the feedback message. Once you have submitted your quiz at the end, you see the feedback message that appreciates you for having attempted the quiz and wishes you well going forward. And once you get the results for the quiz today, go to where your name is and your registration. Take a snapshot and keep that. So that you don't keep coming to me and saying, oh, I did the quizzes and I do not have the marks. I have no way of knowing. So the best that you can do is once the system, because immediately you complete the quiz, the system will be ready to give you your results. However, we have calibrated it in such a way that at one, when the quiz closes, that is when all of us will be able to see our results. So you go to where your results are, take a snapshot. Just open the whole list, take a snapshot where your marks are appearing, and keep that safely. Store it safely in the event of anything, and you want to query, or you want to confirm, or you want to prove that you actually did the quiz, then that will happen because of the snapshot you'll have taken. You'll not come to me and tell me I did the quiz, because there will be several quizzes and all of them will add up to your final cut marks. I know that this far we have done one quiz already, which we did just before the industrial action. So you should now, by now, be having at least a mark out of the 30. And this quiz of today will give you another mark. And like that, I'm hoping that we'll have 2 other quizzes before 19th of December. So that from there onwards, then we'll be putting together the cut marks for onward submission to the department. So make sure that today you are doing a good job of your quiz. So I'll allow you, after I've given my lecture, I'll allow you to go and revise. And then at 12, you should be able to log into the system and start off your quiz. The quiz is located it's located inside topic 7 of library skills. If you have any challenges with being able to log in, with being able to use your smartphone, kindly find your way to the ODEL office. Our technicians are ready to support you. They will be able to guide you. If you do not know where the ODEL office is, ask anyone where ODEL is located. I think it's ABD 004. So go there, you'll be supported, so that then you can be able to log into the system and attempt your quiz. Mbonyi, I do not know where you are, but I can see your video is on. Kindly mute your video, Mbonyi. I can see your video is on. I don't know whether you're in a maize farm or something. Thank you, Mbonyi, for doing that. So it's now 10:50, and I think we can have a brief lecture. Boniface, how many people do we have on board? I also want to ask this, Boniface, is my voice audible? Am I audible? Okay. Thank you very much. So I think I can then start. Yes, on YouTube you have 130. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Boniface. I know once we start off, then more will be able to join in. So I think we can just go ahead and start off, and then uh, I am grateful for the system of learning where we can be able to converse even from a distance. I am now taking my class in the capital city of Kenya, Nairobi. And luckily, because of online learning, we can still have our classroom, as opposed to those days we were confined to the four walls of the classroom confined to places where we have then to be at that specific time to be able to learn. That's the beauty of online learning. And I want to remind you, we don't have there are hotspots in certain places, and this will allow you then to be able to have an easy time meeting your obligations of being present in the online class. To register your presence, there is a roll call at the start of this course online. So today we are looking at writing skills. We are also going to look at academic writing as an aspect of writing. But as usual, before we do any new skill, I like to take you back to build on what we have been doing. I want just to remind you that in this course, we have been able to come up with definitions of the communication process. We have reached an understanding of what that communication process looks like and the key elements of that process. We have also established that communication does not always happen straight away. We have what we call barriers, and our learning and understanding of those barriers is not so we can be able to use them in exams, but it is because we need then to come up with mitigating actions that can help us to be able to go around the barriers and be able to end up with communication. Remember, communication is the process of arriving at shared understanding. We only talk about communication as happening when people are at a level where they can agree on what has been shared. That is, the receiver and the sender are at a common point. Then we also looked at listening skills. And I remember saying that one of the key things we have done ever since we were born is to listen. We have listened to instructions, we have listened to directions given to us, we have listened to other people in our social circle. And as a student, you will still be required to listen. When you go out later on into the workspace, you will be expected to develop good listening, because good listening has advantages. Good listening will enable you follow through the process easily. It will help you undertake what you need to do with ease. When you're not listening well, you will do what is wrong. You'll do what is not required of you. And if it's in a job situation, you may not get the favor of your boss. And if it is in a school situation, then again, you may end up missing out on certain information that would have supported your understanding or what we call your knowledge base. So listening then becomes a key process that we must be able to understand, and we keep improving our listening skills as we go along in the process of being students in Kibabii University. And so in this area, we looked at the forms of listening, the types of listening. We looked at effective listening skills, how you can go about improving your listening skills. And we also looked at the barriers to effective listening. What can affect your listening? Then we looked at reading skills. Under reading skills, we said this is also another major activity that defines a student in an institution of higher learning. You are expected to read. And because of that, you need to understand how you can read effectively, how you can be able to locate materials well that will be useful for you, and then how you can go about mitigating poor reading skills, so that then you become an effective reader who can be able to remember what they have read. And I also gave you an idea of the difference between studying and reading. And we said while they sound very close to each other, they have a fundamental difference in the sense that reading is making sense of written symbols. This can be with a focus or without a focus, but you're trying to make sense of the written symbol. While on the other hand, studying is defined by the focus that it brings into play. Anytime you're talking about studying, you're talking about a focused activity. And because it's a focused activity, then you need to have a plan of how to engage in studying. You talk about the environment, you talk about the study activities, you talk about the study groups, and all that is supposed to build, at the end of it, to build an environment that will support your studying. Because you have a focus, you want to remember information, you want to build your information base, you want to prepare yourself for examinations. All that means that your environment for study must be appropriate to support what you are doing. I remember sharing with you some of the tested and tried strategies. And I said that scholars have come to the understanding and to the support that reading strategies like SQ, 3R, SQ, 4R are reading strategies that will help you be able to be focused, be able to remember what you are reading. And so I said you need to then begin to make use of them if you have to become a better reader, and if you have to make use of to get information from what you are transcribing in the written information. I told you also that not all books will be written in linear manner. That means in paragraphs, in sentences. There are books and information that is usually written in non-linear form, and we call that transcoding. And I gave you reasons why scholars and writers will usually transcode information. In our last lesson, we looked at, now before we look at our last lesson, in our other lesson, we looked at speaking skills. And we said, again, speaking is something that we'll do, especially going forward in our classrooms and in the job market. While we have been speaking since the time we began to know how to speak, there are what we call effective speaking skills. And I remember asking you, have you ever been to a situation or to a gathering where you had a speaker sharing information and you realized that you could remember what they shared, that you could appreciate the way they shared it? There are certain elements about that speaker that helped you either to remember what they were sharing or as well to appreciate the kind of information they were sharing. Among them is the grooming. How were they groomed? Another is if they did what we call audience research. Another is if they did topic research. Another is if they made use of audio material, and even how they presented themselves in relation to the information they were sharing. And so we remember certain speakers very clearly because of how they organized their information and made presentation of it. And I gave you different types of speech delivery methods. We looked at the impromptu, we looked at the manuscript, we looked at the extemporaneous, and we looked at the manuscript. So in all those speech delivery methods, we said each of them has its place. None of them is wrong. Each one of them has its place where it can be used and where it makes the most meaning. And so today, therefore, move on. Now, before we move on to today, why am I today so much? Before we move on to today, we also looked at library skills. I remember telling you that this is a building we must all love as students. And the reason why we need to have an affinity to the library is because a lot of information is stored in this room that is called the library. And this information is supposed to help us build a knowledge base. You have heard of people who are called learned people. You've heard of scholars. These are people who did not just interact superficially with information, but they took time to dig deep into information sources. And so what you get in your classrooms will be a small percentage of what you need to know about any subject of interest. But when you go to the library, then you are able to get more detailed information. And so one of the things you need to be able to do very clearly, some of the things you need to do is to be able to understand how the library is organized. Because once you enter the library space, you realize that there are many, many books. Some of them are visible to you as hard copies, but we also have what we call the e-library, the library that is on the internet, the library that is online, the library that you cannot touch, but which is still available for you. And so going to the library means that you need to be able to understand how to access this information, how to access this information sets, and to make use of them in terms of building your knowledge base. I said the library staff have helped you to do this by number one, coming up with a classification system of the material. In our last lesson, I asked you to go to the Kibabi Library and find out which classification system has been used to categorize our books. Then they have also come up with catalogs. And I told you that in the Kibabi University Library, we have the OPAC system as our key catalog system. I also expect that you have made use of it this far to be able to see whether you can be able to locate a book in the library using the OPAC system. Because the catalog is a list of all the books that we have in our library as Kibabi. And so if there is a book you want, which you know is in the library, then it should be captured in the OPAC system. Lastly, last week, we looked at documenting of sources. We said when we go to the library, we don't just go to read for enjoyment, like reading newspapers, novels, and other materials. We also read seriously. We also do extensive and even intensive reading of materials. And when we do this, it could be because we are preparing for examinations. It could be because we are preparing for an assignment. And so when we get information which we think is going to be useful in writing up our assignment, then we need to capture that information, which we call the bibliographic information. And this will involve the surname of the author, the initials of the author's names, the year of publication, the title of the book, the city of publication, and the publisher. I took you through what it means to reference or to write down the bibliographic information for a book with more than one author, a book with three authors, a book that has an editor or that is edited. I showed you how to write down the bibliographic information of a book that is an edition. Because I said sometimes writers look at materials they have written and published, and they feel there could be something additional which they want to add to the copy. And so that becomes a second edition. Or sometimes they realize that there is information which has already been overtaken by time. New information has come up. So they adjust this, and then that becomes a second edition. And they can do that to many levels. You can have even a seventh edition book. So you can have a book that is an edition copy and how to write its bibliographic information. I took you through how to do that for the journal paper, how to do that for a thesis document that is filed in a university library. And I also took you through how to do bibliographic information for material that is downloaded or that is found online. I want to say that going through your notes, I'm sure that you now have an idea of how this can be done. I am planning to give you an exercise or a task that will help you be able to test your understanding of how to do bibliographic information, how to do referencing using the APA style. There are a number of referencing styles, but we focus on the APA because it's the most commonly used referencing style. And someone was asking in our last lesson, what does APA stand for? And I said APA stands for the American Psychological Association. So they came up with a system of how we can write down information, bibliographic information from a source which we have used in our writing. So I think that brings us to the end of what we have been able to do this far. I'm glad I've taken about 10 minutes to review what we have done this far. And I'll keep reviewing until we come to the end of our course, because I feel that helps us to build connections between what we are doing. For example, now you know that there is a connection between reading, studying, library, and documenting of sources. We have a connection between oral presentation skills or speaking skills and even listening skills. So when we build that kind of connection, we are able to use that information much better than if we look at them as isolated bits of information. So today we are looking at writing skills. On the e-learning platform, I have opened that topic. It's available for you. But I want just to make some brief uh, information. I want to share with you some brief information about writing skills. So writing is one of the 4 language skills taught at all levels of education. If you remember very well, from from the early education levels, that is the ECD, you have always been learning these skills. You have learned how to speak, you've learned how to write, you've learned how to do what? How to study. You have learned these things uh, as you have come up in your study or in your learning or in your education. So what writing means is that writing is a process of text production. It's the process of text production. It involves an interplay between content and language. So you cannot write unless you have content. You cannot write unless you have language. So when these two meet, the content and the language, then you have a piece of writing. So that piece of writing, we also call it writing. It could be an essay, it could be an SMS, it could be an email. We'll call it writing. But even the act of putting pen to paper is still called writing. The process of putting some uh, symbols on a computer or on a phone is still called writing. And writing is one of the hardest language skills. The others are much easier. The early man is remembered very much because of the way they were able to put down some of their writings. And you see, they do not write in any handwriting. They drew whatever information they wanted to share. They drew it in pictorial forms. And these are found in certain places all over the world where they showed what they understood by life through some of those pictorial images. Now, I want you to know that as a student of an institution of higher learning, you will be expected to write. You cannot escape writing. You write term papers. You write group assignments. you write your examinations. At the next level, that is at the master's and PhD levels, you'll write your thesis. Your lecturers and your supervisors get to understand your level of understanding of any topic through what you write. And that is why writing goes hand in hand with reading. I can't be able to tell a good reader by what they write. Writing tells us how much you have interacted with the textbooks, how much you have interacted with the knowledge, how much you have thought through what you have received in the classroom is very much present in what you write. So avid readers will also be great writers. And so that's why I want to encourage you that if you wish to do well in your academics as a student in an institution of higher learning, then you must love the library. And once you love the library, you are reading, then you'll be able to write because you write the content that you have read in the books. Now, the kind of writing you will do will involve responding to assignments, examination items, and assessments. That is the kind of writing you expect. It is a means of showing your uptake of knowledge and information. How much knowledge and information you have, you'll be able to gauge by your writing. We're saying writing is a measure of a student's intellectual quality. If we want to know how good you are as a student, we will measure it by how well you write. So do not expect that you'll be called upon to verbally present information that you know. Mostly, your lecturers will get this sense that you are an intellectually capable student by what you write. And finally, we're saying writing is a mirror of your reading habits. So if you're reading, then we'll see it in your writing. If you're not reading, we'll also not see it. The only unfortunate bit is that most students have the tendency not to read. And because of that, they do not write well. And because they do not write well, they do not make it for even second class upper division. If you see students who have second class upper division, they are making efforts in their reading. They are interacting with materials. If you see students who are first class, they are not just smart, but they also read. Because at this level, it's not exactly about your smartness. It is about how much you have in terms of knowledge, which you can then bring into the exam. And when your exams will be given to you early January, you realize that you will need more than what you hear in the classroom. You will need to have read, and you need to be able to present what you have read clearly in terms of writing. Now, I want you to know also that we have different types of writing. We have different types of writing. We have exploratory or explanation essay, and this is an essay that sets out to explain something that is a subject. Sets out to explain something that is a subject. Expository essay sets out to explain something that is the subject of the essay. If, for example, be asked to explain, for example, how you can light a Bunsen burner, that description is expository because it is making an essay. And in so doing, you will be required to bring in definition of terms. Perhaps what is a Bunsen burner? Perhaps when you're talking about the flame, what do you mean by that? You may want to describe what you can see in terms of that process. You may bring in cause and effect relationships in an expository or explanatory essay. One of the things that you will need to do that will help your reader connect what you're telling them and what they know is the use of illustrations and examples. Another type of essay that is quite common and which you'll come across is the descriptive essay. The descriptive essay strives to ensure that the reader gets an impression of the subject through the 5 senses. That is the sense of smell, touch, hearing, seeing, and tasting. And so, as a reader, the impression they get is subject to what you as the writer wants them to be able to focus on. Let me give you an example. You have gone for a field trip. You are visiting the Great Rift Valley. What you will focus on in terms of describing the topographical appearance may be as varied as the people who have gone out for this field trip. There are those who will see a lot of greenery. There are those who will see a lot of soil. There are those who will see a lot of mountains. There are those who will see how high the mountain is. And so the reader actually benefits from seeing through the eyes of the writer. And this is a kind of essay that you're likely to come across. Another essay type that you come across is the argumentative. This involves presenting reasons, evidence, and logical order of events in order to convince the reader about the correctness or otherwise of a given view. And so when you're making an argument, you want to persuade, you want to shift the reader's stand on a certain direction which they hold. And so you need to present strong arguments, strong points. You may want to bring in supporting evidence and reasons why your side is much better than what the reader could be holding as their view. You need to ensure that you acknowledge and accommodate and sometimes even meet the opposing sides at a certain point. That is argumentative essay. I want to give you an example. An example would be an essay like women should limit their career choices to those that are traditionally defined for them. And then you're asked to discuss. So depending on whichever side you hold as true to you, you will make your argument. And to be able to convince the other person, who is most likely your lecturer or whoever has given you the task, you need to have strong points. You need to have supporting evidence. You need also to acknowledge that there is an opposing side to your argument, so that you don't look like there is only one view of the reality. There are several views, but you want to make your reader or the person listening to you have a direction that is similar to yours. So those are types of essays, and they are found in the notes. If you go to the e-learning platform, you'll find them in my notes. Now, writing is also a process. It is something that happens in an orderly way through several stages. Writing is also said to be iterative. What that means is that it does not proceed in a linear manner. You don't begin from the start of your essay and write running down to the end. There is a back and forth in writing. And so sometimes when you're given an assignment and you're given 2 weeks to make your presentation, it is important to know that your lecturers have taken into consideration the fact that what you're going to be writing will require editing, will require several drafts, will require some revision, will require streamlining. And so if you just write the last minute, you know that you're supposed to submit your work, let us say on Friday, and then you rush through and by Friday you submit your work. I can tell you for free that you're likely not to have a very good presentation because you have missed out some of the steps in this whole process of writing. And so the writing process goes like this. These are the various stages. Number one stage is the pre-writing. The pre-writing stage where you generate notes and plans of how your essay will look like. And you begin by trying to understand the topic. Usually you'll be given a topic. This topic needs to be dissected so that you're able to understand what is required of you. I don't know whether in the past you have ever written an essay and you're so confident that you have done very well. And when the essay back, the feedback comes back, you're told it was irrelevant, it was out of topic. It means to be what the examiner did. It is because you dissect the topic. And so when we dissect the topic, we look at it from various angles. Number one, we look at the direct or instructional verbs. Every topic has direct instruction verbs. This is a verb that directs the writer on what he should do with the topic. For example, identify is a directive verb. Discuss, explain, list, compare and contrast, account for, and many others that you come across. Those directive verbs tell you what you should do with the subject matter of that topic. And once you understand what to do, then you will proceed well. If you're asked to discuss, then what is required of you is to examine and explore the issue to a deep level. Then make your comments about it. Look at it from different perspectives and angles. If you're asked to justify, it means make a case for, give reasons why, provide adequate grounds for why you are saying what you're saying. If you're asked to analyze, what is being required of you is to break down that information into constituent parts and examine the relationship between these parts and even question the information you are analyzing. So a good understanding of the instructional verbs helps you to be able to make good your discussion of the topic. The second aspect of the topic that you need to clearly understand are the content words or phrases. This brings out the specific subject matter that you are expected to handle in the question. It could be something like free primary education, gender equality, pollution. Those are just examples. But understanding the topic, understanding the content words will again help you to be on point. I'm sure there are questions where you have not understood the subject and therefore you have written on your own subject, and as a result, your feedback from whoever was marking usually will be that you have not done well or that it is irrelevant. So understanding the topic is a useful thing for you to do, and the topic is covered under content words. Then we have functional words. You need to understand the functional words. These are words that delimit the subject matter. They could include dates, they could include numbers, they could include articles. For example, if you're asked to speak about the issue of pollution in the year 2025, that limits you to speaking about pollution in the year 2025. If you begin to speak about pollution in 1963, unless you're trying to build a case, a history, what will happen is that you'll be out of topic. And therefore, because you have set your own exam or you have set your own question, you are likely not to meet the requirements of the examiner. It could be about numbers. You have been asked to describe or to explain the kind of the number of environmental preservation practices that have supported, let us say, communities in forested areas. Let us say you have been told to give 5 preservation strategies, and you only talk about 2. Again, you will have missed out. So functional ones are also important, so that when you are dealing with an essay, you need to dissect the topic. And by dissecting, we have said, you look at the directive verbs or the instructional verbs. This gives you a direction on what to do with the subject matter. And then the subject matter is captured under the content words. It also gives you what to deal with. And then the functional words that give you the scope within which you are supposed to limit your discussion. So in working on an essay, this pre-writing stage is very key. Whether you are doing it alone or in a group, it's important to begin by understanding what is our topic, what are the instructional verbs, what are the content words, what are the functional words. Then we move to stage number 2, which is writing. And by writing here, we're talking about drafting the text. We are putting that information after we have gone out and done our research. We have consulted books, we have consulted our notes. If we know of any specialist who want to consult, we can also speak to them. So we have gathered information and we are putting down our information in paragraphs. That is called drafting. And drafting can be a process that is very iterative. That means we do it again and again. We have draft 1, we have draft 2. So as we read through, we realize there's information we need to add. Or as we read through, we realize there's information we need to drop. So we are drafting. Perhaps our draft was 1 page, and our lecturer required our draft to be 2 pages, or our complete essay to be 2 pages. So we are building, we are adding, we are reducing. We are trying to align the information to make sense. That is drafting. So drafting, we are not limiting it to 1 draft. You can have as many drafts as you can, and that means then that the group task, you are sitting together time and time again trying to work through the drafts. And you can see therefore why I said, if you're given an assignment as a group, you don't wait for the deadline and then you wake up and quickly type your essay and submit it. The likelihood is that your score will be poor because you have not engaged in this process of drafting and redrafting to be able to come up with a text. The last stage in this process, the writing process, is what we call the post-writing, and it involves revising, it involves editing, and in revising, we are trying to look at, does our essay make sense? Remember when we were writing the draft, we did not go through to make sure that it is grammatical. We did not check the spellings. We did not check the punctuation. We were simply drafting. But at this level now, we check the punctuation, we check the grammar, we check the arrangement of the paragraphs, and we try to see whether it flows in a logical manner. This is a process that can be done alone or with others. By having another eye check up your work, there's likelihood that they will see what you did not see, and they will be able to support the work. If you're doing it in a group, then several groups can look at several drafts. Like if you are in a group of 6, for example, 2 people can look at the first draft, then you revisit, you rework it. Another 2 look at the next one, you rework it. Another 2 will look at and then finally, all of you will be able to look at the draft in terms of revising. So these are steps that can not be avoided in the process of writing. Now, since we are students in an institution of higher learning, we cannot avoid to speak about academic writing. And academic writing is done by scholars for other scholars. It deals with the topics and issues of interest that are timely, relevant, and interesting to the world of academics. So this will include term papers, reports, dissertations, conference papers, and they have a specific function to report on a research that was done, to answer a question that the writer has chosen, or to discuss a topic of interest. And because of that, academic writing becomes slightly different from the kind of writing you know of. The essays that you wrote in primary school, I'm sure you remember them, where you wrote about my heart was beating like the tum-tum drums of West Africa, or things like I padded my hoofs, things like that. We now have moved to the level where we're not writing imaginatively. We are writing based on informed argument. And so you see the library now comes in, because you have to go out of your way, read books, get information that you can then be able to present to your readers in the form of an informed argument. And academic writing uses language that is impersonal. You don't bring in yourself into the essay. It attempts to be accurate and objective. So when you're talking about revising, when we're talking about editing, streamlining, we are ensuring that we are accurate and objective. It also makes use of citations and referencing. Because we have gone out and read books, it is possible that we have found information from other people's materials. And to avoid plagiarism, which we said is a kind of an academic theft, in the sense that you're making use of someone's information without making due recognition of their work. To avoid that, then you have to make use of citations. You have to do what we call referencing. That's where you will apply the APA system of referencing. It's important that the work then is divided into sections, which the reader can then be able to connect together to see the logical flow of information. And these sections include the introduction, the main body, and the conclusion. Now, all these sections of the essay have what they consist of and what role they play in the essay. The introductory essay paragraph will majorly be what you come across once you begin to look at a piece of writing. But before we go into the introductory paragraph, perhaps we need to ask ourselves, what is paragraphing in writing? And we'll say that a paragraph is a group of sentences involving a single idea or theme. So anytime you're writing a paragraph, we are not talking about how long it will be, but we're talking about what is its focus. What is it addressing? It should address a single idea or theme. And this then will define how long it can go. Of course, it should not be too long to lose the reader inside the details. It is important that the focus is clearly a single idea. Now, a good paragraph is also structured. Because it's dealing with a single idea, it is also structured. The first sentence is what we call the topic sentence. This is the sentence that indicates the general direction in which the paragraph is created. The topic sentence is the first sentence you see, and it carries the general idea. That means it has the issue that you want to address. After that, we have what we call the body or the supporting sentences, and these ones provide examples, they provide support, they provide further information that is connected to the general idea that was covered in the topic sentence. Then lastly, we have the clincher or the concluding sentence that ties up the information shared from the topic sentence and the supporting sentences. I want you to notice that we're talking about an introductory sentence, we're talking about a concluding sentence, but we are also talking about supporting sentences, meaning the introductory sentence will be one, the concluding sentence will be one, but the supporting sentences will be a number depending on what you wish to bring out in the process of supporting what you have begun to write about. Now, the introductory paragraph then will have this kind of structure. So in a paper, we expect to see an introductory paragraph. We expect to see a concluding paragraph. And we expect to see body paragraphs. Let me take that again. In a paper, we expect to see the introductory paragraph, the concluding paragraph, and in between, we have a number of body paragraphs. These body paragraphs will address a single idea, each one of them. So if you have 5 ideas to support your topic, then you expect to see 5 body paragraphs. Inside the body paragraphs, there is information that we expect to see that will help the reader be able to build an understanding of your essay. Now, at the end of writing, I've already said we'll talk about revision, and this revision can be in the form of peer editing, or it can be an individual revising the information. So I want to just direct you to the notes on the platform, the e-learning platform, and to ask that you revisit that information, you make your brief notes, and we will continue from that point next when we meet. Thank you very much. I want to ask Boniface to close that session and ask us to prepare ourselves because it's heading to 12 so that we can be able to undertake our quiz. Be very sure to submit your answers. Do not just stop at the end of the last question. Ensure you submit it and you receive my feedback that says, thank you for attempting the quiz. I wish you well. If you do not see that, then you have not finished, you have not completed your essay. Thank you. Welcome, Boniface. Hello, Boniface. Are you speaking to us? Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. They may have run off to revise. We expect them in the quiz. Okay. Thank you, thank you. So, dear students, we'll take a break at this point. Quickly revisit your notes, and at 12, log in, and you have 30 minutes. The quiz closes at 1, but you have 30 minutes once you start the quiz. At 1, expect your results. Kindly take a snapshot of what you have got and keep it safely. Thank you. I wish you success.